Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the lunch. My name is Dr. Cornell Darden Jr. I am the chairman of the board of the Greater Chicago Land Black Chamber of Commerce, and we want to thank one of our chamber members, soon to be board member, Mrs. Kristen Sumter of Property Tax Solutions, for sponsoring this amazing event. So let's give Property Tax Solutions a round. And I'd like to acknowledge one of the chamber board members, Mr. David Lockman, and Mrs. Erica Darden, our phenomenal vice president. Today we have a very serious issue to discuss, and we put together a panel discussion of experts. These are some very, very smart people with very, very good information. So, as I told you earlier, we want to solve this issue today. So, I would like to start by introducing our panel, Mr. Kristen Sumter.
We really appreciate you guys being here. We honestly have a huge issue on our hands, an apocalypse of sorts. And Property Tax Solutions can help you fight your property taxes. Not only we can tell you in 5 minutes for residential property if we're able to save you any money. So definitely see Lindsay in the back over there. She's there to help you guys with any questions that you might have. And then I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. I was in technology formerly, and basically I've been in real estate for over a decade. And selling real estate property in the south suburbs, as you may know, it's a little difficult, right? And the only reason is because of the property taxes. Let's take a town like Park Forest. I could, represent a client, and they lost the majority, if not all, of their generational wealth. And for me, that was devastating, and so I decided something we need to do about this, and that's when I decided to join Property Tax Solutions to help fight for property taxes and for your, inheritance. So thank you again for having me, the Darden family, and excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Ted Dabrowski, and I'm with a group called WirePoints. And at WirePoints, we try to tell the truth and the facts about what's going on in Illinois. By way of background, my parents were immigrants to Illinois, to Chicago, and so I'm a big fan of remembering or knowing how things were then and compared to how they are now. Too many people are struggling, too many people are leaving, and at WirePoints, we want to make Illinois a destination state once again, like it used to be when my parents first came here. And so I'll talk in a little bit more detail here, but one of the big problems we have is property taxes. People are getting squeezed out of their homes. It's chasing too many people out of the state, and so we want to help expose why that's happening and help solve it. So, Ted Dabrowski from WirePoints. Thank you.
He's one of the best in Illinois. My name is Jeannie Ives. I'm a former state representative. I live in Wheaton. I'm a mother of 5, and I also ran for governor against Bruce Rauner when he betrayed everything Republicans stand for. And I did run for Congress in 2020. Following that, I started something called Breakthrough Ideas, and that's because I don't think that people really want some of the policies that are imposed upon them. I think people don't understand or know I'm there to connect the dots, just like Ted is, on policy, politics, and politicians who put those in place. And let's be honest, the reason that we're involved in politics is because politics begets policy, and policies impact people. So you have to be in this realm. You have to understand what's going on. Property taxes is one of the biggest things that I worked on as a state legislator, and so maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. And I also have a radio show, if you could tune in, Sunday nights on AM 560 from 7 to 9 p.m. It's The Real Story with Jeannie Ives, and we cover a lot of state and local issues, and we also bring in the national conversation as it impacts Illinois. Thank you so much.
Test 1, 2. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Sam Brown. I'm the Rich Township Assessor. I've been involved in property tax matters since 2006, and I've been involved in public service per se since 1994. My goal at this whole thing basically started out as being just a guy that wants to do something good for the neighborhood. And that's been my mission ever since 1994. So I became the Rich Township Assessor in 2018 after 11 years of working with the Cook County Board of Review, assisting people with property tax exemptions and appeals. It started getting a little intense as these tax bills continue to go higher and higher. My phone's been ringing off the hook ever since the previous reassessment that happened last year. And I've been trying to kind of mitigate fears of people, but the reality has really set in. And I found myself limited in what I felt I could do, which basically is, yes, I can help you appeal your property tax bill, and I can help you get any exemptions that you haven't gotten. But clearly, that's not enough. And so I guess a couple of weeks before the recent Democratic convention, I had an epiphany. Apparently, Michelle Obama came to me in a dream and said, do something. So I came up with this idea of starting a petition drive. And if you go to www.change.org/stop-high-property-taxes, you'll see a funny looking picture coming up with four kind of diverse looking people holding what appears to be a tax bill. And below that, you'll see a narrative associated with what I saw the problem to be, the effects it's having, and what some possible solutions are. And you'll see the opportunity to sign off on the petition. So I would encourage you to go to change.org/stop-high-property-taxes and help us out with the petition. I'm trying to get about at least 10,000 signatures that we can present to the governor to let him know that what he already knows is that it's a serious issue out here. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm Bob Fioretti, and I think I'm the average guy up here. I'm really privileged and honored to be on the panel. The three, especially on that side, I think they underestimated or understated what they do, both what Ted does on wire points, what Jeannie does, because she's been out there especially fighting on the right side to make sure that we have safe streets, strong communities, and thriving businesses. I am running for state's attorney, and sometimes people say, well, you know, the state's attorney, what do they have? They don't have anything to do. Right now we have 18 people in that office that deal with, and every time I talk to them over there, they are overworked and underpaid. We need more of them because they're probably the only line that can protect us. I'm going to go in probably during the course of this panel discussion, though, about my views on this corrupt tax system and how one party and only one party benefited from it, and what happened as they benefited from the course of the last 50 years and what they've done to all of us, especially in the southern suburbs. Thank you, everybody.
Hello, everybody. I want to give thanks out to the doctor. Let's give him a big applause for putting this on. My name is Anthony Travis, a.k.a. the Tax Doctor. I was 23 years old when I first got elected to public office. And in 1991, I got elected to Proviso Township School of Trustees position, and I'm still in that office since 1991. And in that office, we deal with the school's funds of $500 million. And all of the bulk of that money comes from taxpayers. I had the good fortune to serve on the governor's task force for property tax relief. Property tax relief. Instead of getting relief, folks, they hit us with SB 508. SB 508. That is called the recapture law. And what that means is if you got $1,000 tax cut, everybody got to pay that $1,000 back for you the following year. And I want you all to understand there is a solution to this crisis. I'm going to present that solution as we delve into this whole crisis. It is a crisis, and it's not only in Chicago, Illinois. For the black community, it's practically around the whole entire United States. So it is a serious crisis. Thank you.
So, we will get started with some hard facts and data from Mr. Ted Dabrowski from Wire Points, and he also has some slides to share as well.
Thank you. And I think I'm going to come around and so I can see the slides myself. First of all, everybody has a one-page paper that has some of this stuff on there. It might make more sense after I talk, but let me go through this. Now, the first thing we need to understand is that these local property taxes are paid for, they go for government costs. And so the first thing you have to understand is that our government is too expensive. It costs too much. That's why our property taxes are so high. So when we think about this, you got to remember, if we want to cut taxes, we got to cut our spending. Now let me get into that. If you look over the last 30 years, John, since 1990 to today, that's what this graphic shows. The red line is how much property taxes have gone up per household over the last 30 years, and the blue line is incomes. And for 30 years, those bills just keep going faster and faster and faster, up, and our incomes aren't keeping up. And that's why so many people are feeling pain. This is all of Illinois. Okay, so this is an Illinois story. Now it happens to be even more acute in places like South. Okay, but this is why you're feeling the pain, why so many people are feeling the pain. This is why our house values aren't keeping up with the rest of the country. The rest of the country is seeing massive home price increases. We're not, because of property taxes is one of the reasons. Next slide. So that whole period of high taxes has put us in the #1 position. This graphic here shows all 50 states. You don't need to be able to see the states. What you need to know is that Illinois is on the far left. These are the effective tax rates. This is how much you pay as a percentage of your home value each year. Highest in the country. Highest in the country. We compete with New Jersey back and forth for #1 and #2. You can see our neighboring states like Kentucky and Indiana and Missouri. They're half, at least, half the taxes. This is why we're feeling the pain. Too much government, too expensive. Next slide. Now, before I talk about why it's so expensive, you need to understand that it's not just property taxes. We have the second highest gas taxes in the country. We have, Chicago has the highest sales taxes in the country. All of our taxes are high. When you add up all the state and local taxes in Illinois, we're the seventh highest in the country. So it's not about shifting taxes from one thing to another, right? Because if you just shift them around, all we're doing is we're moving from one part of our pocketbook to another. We're going to get hit. It's about lowering the cost of government. I lost John here. We lost our clip. Thank you. Now, okay, too much government. One thing we've talked about is we have too many units of government. Look at this. This shows that we have 6,900 taxing bodies. Townships, cities, school districts, mosquito abatement districts, cemetery zones. I mean, it's crazy how many governments we have. We have almost 7,000 units of government. Florida, which is much bigger than Illinois, has less than 2,000. And you have to understand that when you have these units of government, guess what? They need, first they need bureaucrats, and then the bureaucrats need to get paid. You know, they like salaries, and they like pensions, and like health care. I mean, this isn't to beat up on those people, but when you have too much government, it sucks up money from who? Ordinary people, okay? So that's a big, big problem. If we don't cut the units of government and all the excess that goes with them, we're in trouble. Next thing is when we get these units of government, they like to manage people. They like to have staff. And so if you look at what's happened in the last 5 years alone in staffing in school districts across Illinois. 20 years. In the last 20 years, we have fewer students today, 5% fewer students, but we have 70% more administrators than we did 20 years ago. 318% more other staff. So we keep adding people. It gets more and more expensive, and each one of those wants a salary and a pension and health care. Okay? Can't afford it. So I'm going to show you the excess. See, here's where it really shows up. I hope you guys can see this. Pensions. Pensions are a big driver of all these costs. To get a big pension, what do you need to have before you retire? Big salary. Right? So this is what happens. The biggest pensioner in the teacher retirement system in Illinois comes from Homewood Flossmoor. Ms. Murray retired at age 57. She currently has a $376,000 a year pension. And over the course of her retirement, she lives to her expected age of mortality. She will take in $10.2 million in pensions. Okay? Now, again, nothing against her. She's getting what the contract was, so don't beat her up. But this is what the system is giving out, and she's guaranteed this by you, right? She gets those kind of guarantees. Ordinary people don't get those guarantees, but what they have to do is pay it. Now, John just clicked the slide. John's my colleague at WirePoints, by the way. Look at this. These are all the highest retirees in Illinois. They retired in their 50s. Huge pensions, $9 million or more in payouts. It's one of the reasons our taxes are too high. We can talk about that more quick. Now, maybe we'd say, hell, we'll pay them $50 million if our kids could read. Right? But look at this is the spending per student. All right, so the spending per student in Illinois versus Indiana and Florida. We're spending $6,500 more per student than Indiana, and $7,000, almost $8,000 more than, or whatever, $7,000 more than Florida. Our reading results aren't any better. So where's all that money going? That's what everybody should be asking. Why? Look, I like teachers. I like government employees. I mean, the ones that are not corrupt, and I like the ones that are honest and whatever. But I don't like them enough to spend so much more per student and not get better results. So that's the questions that need to be asked. And I'm going to stop now so everybody has time. I have a bunch of stats on Southland, okay, which I'm happy to talk about, but I want to make sure everybody speaks first. And if you guys want to come back to that, we will. But what I do want to do is pull up a property tax bill and let Jeannie talk about that.
So this is a bill that I got a copy of. It is from a home in Hazel Crest, and if you look at it, you can see this. And I found out a little bit of a backstory about this person. Of course, we don't want any identifying information, so we block that out. But I do know that this person happens to be a retiree. Now, what's interesting is that she opened up her pet tax bill, and she immediately saw a 93% increase in the amount of taxes she owes in 1 year. As you can see here, her taxes went up over $5,800 in 1 year. So she's got to come up with an extra $500 a month to pay her bill. I don't know how you do that. But there's a couple different things that you should know about this bill. So you can look and you can see, maybe it's a little bit harder to understand this bill, but okay, you've got some great stuff. So the Hazel Crest Village is up $1,842. 78% in 1 year. Now, I went to the Hazel Crest Village's website and looked at their budget for 2025. And what you do find is that overall, their property taxes overall went up only 5%. Now, what did increase is police salaries are up 19%, fire salaries are up 11%, pension costs related to both police and fire are up 13%. So you have these drivers, which through no fault of their own, let's admit it, we're a union state. So collective bargaining has given these guys a lot higher salaries, and the pension system has given them very generous pension benefits. So it's not just on the school side, you also see it on the municipal side. And I could go on and on about what they say is a really well-funded system, and that being IMRF. But IMRF is also a very, very expensive system for people for municipalities. I mean, overall, you've got many times them putting in 30, 50% when it comes to police and fire of the salary into the pension system for the future because they're so underfunded. When it comes to IMRF, you've got them putting in upwards of 20% towards their pension. Now, I don't know about you, but for every dollar you make, does your employer put away 20 cents for you for your future? No, they don't. They just don't. So these are incompatible with what people, everyday, ordinary Illinoisans are having to deal with in their own personal lives. And so this is just one of those things I want to bring up. Then you can look at the school district. School District 44, that's their elementary school district. Taxes are up $1,737 just on this one individual owner, just on this one particular piece of property. She's paying almost $2,000 more to a school district that is failing the kids. That particular school district, and I know Ted's got more information, but this is just specific to this one. Hang on. That particular school district is Prairie Hills Elementary School District 44. In that district, only 15% of the children read or do math at grade level. And only 5% of the children do math at grade level. Only 50%, do English language arts at grade level. 5% do math. That's it. That's not an education system. That's a warehouse. That might as well just call it daycare. And then on top of that, this is an elementary school. We should have lower spending overall. You don't have really expensive classes. We don't have really expensive labs. You don't have really much more expensive textbooks or more expensive support services, truly. But they spend $17,000 per kid, and only 5% of them do math at grade level. Now the next school district, Raymond High School District 228, is really not much better. In that case, for Bremen, 18% of the kids read at grade level, 15% do math at grade level. So when you think about that, 10 kids walk into that school district as freshmen, they come back out, and just over 2 kids, not even 2 kids, are at grade level, are ready for the next step. So in that case, on that high school though, they spend $22,000 per student. $22,000 per student. Now there's really, really top private schools that you can spend $14,000, $15,000 per kid, and you're going to get results. So your school systems are not just expensive; they're not performing. They're just not performing. And now that you know what we know, and by the way, we could have done this with a number of different school districts down here. We could have done this. Heck, we could have done this in West Chicago. I mean, they have school districts that are bad too. DuPage County is not immune to this. There's almost no county that's immune to these types of results in particular schools. Almost none. You talk about the DNC, a mile away from the DNC is a school, a high school, where none of the kids, 0% of the kids read or do math at grade level. 0%. That's a high school. So we've got a problem here, and this is part of your property taxes are driving this problem. Okay, it'd be maybe different if they were getting results or not getting results. Now the other thing that's interesting about this property tax bill, and I don't know if we have the bottom portion of this. Do you have the bottom portion at all? Well, the bottom portion of it shows that the assessment on this particular property went up from just over 11,000 assessed value to 26,000 assessed value. So the assessment on this particular property skyrocketed. And perhaps Sam can discuss the increase in assessed values. But that's definitely part of what drove her increased cost, is they assessed her value. Gosh, what is that? that's over 2 times as much as she was assessed before. The other issue here, and we didn't really pull up slides about this, I don't think, Ted, but when your residential property tax value goes up, it's assessed more. You're gonna pay more. And then when the school districts and the village and everybody else levies more, then you're gonna obviously pay more. But guess what's also causing part of this problem? You don't have a growing economy. When your businesses don't pay into the system as well, that burden is shifted onto the residential property owner. And that is what's happening. We saw that happen in Naperville massively, and in other parts of the state after the 08-09 crisis. Well, now we're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing this happening everywhere as business erodes and does not pay in or get special tax exemptions, like the Chinese company in Manteno that's opening up, got a special abatement for the next 30 years. It's building an EV battery plant that's costing you guys $500 million. That's a whole nother property. That's a whole nother discussion we should have. But that is also part of this calculation. If business isn't in business, then they're not paying property taxes either. So I just want to highlight some of those issues with this particular bill. But again, you open up the bill, you're a retiree, and you've got to come up with $500 more every single month just to pay a property tax. It's insane. It's criminal, in my opinion.
Thank you, Ms. Ives. So much great information and statistics, and we got some more information coming from the rest of our panel. I want to start next with Mr. Tristan Sumter. We have identified what the issues are, and what's really driving our property taxes to go sky high. But Mr. Sumter, a lot of people here today want to know, how can they get immediate relief? What can they do right away to get relief?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. One of the things that I would suggest is check your tax bill to make sure, obviously Sam can attest to this, that you're getting your exemptions, right? Most of all of the people that were 65 and they were getting senior freezes, they lost those senior freezes. So that's immediate. That's going to be the lowest hanging fruit. And then aside from that, going to the assessor is telling a story, right? The assessor doesn't know your property is not going to look like that property that got flipped on your block. They came in, they put $30,000 into the kitchen, maybe another $10,000 into the roof, but that's going to affect your property as well. So immediately you want to make sure you look at that and you tell your assessor via, you can do it, go directly to the assessor's office, or you can use our office as attorneys, and we can do that. Most folks, they don't know that you do have relief. You have about 4 different iterations of activity where you can go. The assessor office is one, the board review is the other. You can also go to the PTAC. You can also go to the Cook County Circuit Court. So some of those require attorneys, not all of them. And so immediately I would go and say, hey, my property does not look like that property that was flipped on my block. Let me tell the assessor, right? And so part of that is telling the story, having pictures to back it up, having dates to back it up. Maybe your property's under construction right now, so you're not able to utilize your property. I know in the greater part of the south suburbs, you have a problem with sewer backup, right? And so maybe your neighbors are experiencing that, and you're experiencing that. Tell the assessor. Those are things that you want to highlight for your property. And what we do in our office is we take everything individualized. We don't say generally like all properties should be assessed the same, even though that's how they do it in the state of Illinois. But we look at it and say, you're probably experiencing something different than your neighbors. And then the other thing is tell your neighbors to assess their properties, because that is how your property is going to go down. We have an algorithm in our office, proprietary algorithm that we've built. And again, check your property. You can go to our website via Lindsay, or we can send you the website, propertytaxsolutions.com. You check your savings, you'll know instantly if you have a reduction, if you're due a reduction. We can tell you where you sit on your block. So That's some of the immediate things that I would suggest that you do, especially every time an assessment comes, and even before. But definitely check for all those items. And the other thing too with this data, Ted, I personally know a couple school superintendents that retired, but guess where they reside now? The most infuriating thing about it all, Arizona, Florida. So they're not paying back into our system, right? And so that's really the crux of the situation. Is we have these high salaries, but when they retire, they're not staying down the block from you like they was originally when they were working for the state of Illinois. They're going to go to Florida or they're going to go to Arizona. And so that's criminal as well. I think that we need to look at that and say, no longer will we sit back and we will take this like we've done for decades of, just injustices. And so part of something I brought too, I don't think a lot of people have heard of this guy before, but it's called the Black Tax. And of course, it's obvious I'm Black, but I thought that the funny thing about the book, we've been talked about injustice and disparities for over 150 years. I would suggest you guys get it, you guys read it, and you kind of digest information to figure out how this tax system is set up and primarily not set up for us to win. And I think this can go for, every ethnicity, not just Black people, right? Especially if you're living in the South Suburbs.
Mrs. Sumter, can you give us a step-by-step of what your office does and what it looks like when people come to you?
Absolutely, yeah. So the first thing is we check that savings, right? So you can go on our website. We can do it via starting a process of an appeal process. We can do that from the assessor office. So as soon as the assessor opens, which Rich Township is not opening yet, I think that's in September. So it's going to be opening soon. And what we do is we go in and set up a case for you, right? And so we check the comparables on our side, and then we present that information to the assessor's office. Aside from that, once the board of review opens, that's going to be 2 separate dates. So you'll have the assessor date, which again will be sometime in September, and then following that, when the assessor closes, if you don't get immediate reduction or relief, then we have to go to the board of review. So that's a separate date that you want to keep. And then from there, we go to the PTAB. And so a lot of what we do in our office, again, is tell our story. So we have a former, I think he worked for the New York Times, and so he's a journalist. And so what he does is kind of eloquently explaining what's going on with the homeowners and what's going on with all of the situations for your particular property. And so a part of the due diligence period, we go out, we'll take photos if necessary, we'll run all the comps, and it's free, absolutely free for you to work with us. We only get paid if we save your reduction.
Mr. Sam, can you speak about what's going on later on in September when Rich Township opens up and what that looks like?
Okay, so this is kind of an interesting time because along with that, what else is going on right now is the Board of Review is also accepting appeal applications. This is what we refer to as the pre-file period. Obviously, they're not open as of yet and won't be probably until November or December. But it's a good time to file that appeal with them. Nothing's going to happen with it because, as Tristan said, the assessment piece is coming up in September. And we go through this process of the assessor going through his making decisions on all the appeals. And once that's all done and the decision, trying to turn this mic right. Oh, yeah, feedback. So I lean back, walk back, and turn the speaker a little bit away from me, just a tad. I used to play in a band, so I'm like really on this. Is that okay? Bet. Okay. So what happens is the assessor period starts later this month, and they go through their whole thing, but we're all working from the same comparable system. So when the assessor's piece is over, he has to update the new values based on all of the appeals that he did. And that's why we can't submit an actual appeal to the Board of Review at this time. We can submit it, but it's just going to sit there until time. Okay? And so it's a little bit confusing. But we, in our office, as a matter of course, we file appeals with both of them. So we're set up, basically, we're working on, we're pulling comps right now for the assessment in anticipation of what's coming up because people have come and they've also wanted to do pre-files. So we're getting set up for the assessor. And that's going to start later on this month. But we go through a similar process. We go in our system and we look for comparables that would justify a reduction. And if there are mitigating circumstances, we'll of course say, look, if you got pictures, if you got a story to tell, let's put that together. Often it will require, you make an appointment. Most times it may not. We take a lot of the information over the phone so that we can actually process more appeals than we can if we have people coming into the office. For instance, if it's just a straight appeal based on lack of uniformity, which just basically means that your house has a lower per square foot or higher per square foot value than the other houses on your block or in your area. If it's just like that, I can take the information on the phone. You don't have to come into the office. I can look up the comps and submit them online on your behalf. And that's mostly what we do, except in cases where people, like I said, have mitigating circumstances or we have people that just feel that they have to talk to somebody face to face, so we'll make exceptions for that as well. But we basically do a lot of the same thing. In fact, I sometimes refer a client to somebody like Tristan because they may have the ability to go kind of a little bit further than we can go. So she has attorneys, so I'm not opposed to that. And plus, we're free, so it doesn't really matter, But I'll refer a client. Well, I've got a couple of different organizations that I will occasionally refer a client to when it's a case that has a super unique circumstance, like $1 million house in an area where all the other houses are only $500,000. I hope that kind of answers the question.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Assessor. Can you have the mic to Mr. Fioretti? Mr. Fioretti, as an attorney, when it comes to these assessments, right now the Cook County assessor basically tells us that the assessments causes a round robin type situation where when you assess one person, he has to go and raise someone else's property taxes. Can you speak to that?
I may. First of all, like I said, I'm honored to be on this panel here, but I think everybody ought to be very angry. Very angry. I've been on 3 different congressional districts this week. Danny Davis is, Jonathan Jackson, and Robin Kelly. When we had the foreclosure crisis only a few years ago, people dropped the keys and walked away because they couldn't afford the homes that they bought then. The mortgage scandal just ruined, decimated communities. I'm hearing it again. I'm hearing it everywhere I went. I'm hearing it, it doesn't matter who or what you are. When you were saying about superintendents and everybody else, one of my neighbors came by, and I live on the west side of Chicago, only a few blocks away from the United Center, and a block away from where they had their perimeter. So, I say this, I was shown a tax bill that actually went down. Beautiful home, I've seen it, I've seen the pictures of it. It went down from $4,300 and some odd dollars to less than $4,000. But the question was, just like you were saying, where was the home? It was in Naples, Florida. Anybody that believes we keep doing the same thing, what did Albert Einstein say? You keep doing the same thing over and over again? That's the definition of being crazy. I remember a board review member came up to me and said, Dave, I'll hit you just like you did. He said, Bob, I got the greatest job in the world. I said, oh, really? Yeah. Everybody appeals their taxes, and we just lower them. They think we're heroes. Something tells me that is wrong. We have the most corrupt system in the country. Why does everybody have to appeal their taxes to get relief? You know, I know you're going to go through all the numbers and hear what but we ought to be angry. You know, the state's attorney does have a role in that. You know, when I started off saying certain people got very rich from this system, and you know who is going to go to jail shortly, who was an alderman, you know, another one is being on trial sometime in October. How did they make their fortunes? They made it from the property tax system. Ed Burke often would come to me in the city council meeting and say, Bob, if you can get me to the post office, we can split the fee. And my response was, Ed, we vote on taxes here. It's against the ethics. It should be against the law. He said, well, we have an ordinance that we can split the fees. You and I could both get $99,999.99. Jeannie knows they were doing the same thing in the legislature. Same people. You know, but maybe they own a title company, they own something else. They get this system. All right. When I was first elected, I got a call from the chairman of the Democratic Party, and I said, and I said, yes, sir, Mr. Speaker. Can we meet? I went to his office. I sat in a small room, waiting for the honor of meeting. And on the table were all these laminated pieces on the second ward, 10 of them, which was my ward. I got what this was all about. You know, I don't know what to say to all of you, because you're going to hear the numbers. I mean, what benefits have you gotten as you look at your property taxes have gone up? I mean, let's tell you what happened on some of these. According to the Cook County Treasurer's Office, the median property tax increase for South suburban homeowners this year went up 19%. According to the Sun-Times, they were more acute in some of the black South suburban areas that saw increases of 30% or more. For instance, the median tax bill in Dixmoor jumped $1,950 to 122% increase. The median individual income in Dixmoor is $20,000. The median bill in the nearby Phoenix rose by 107% to $1,744. The median individual income in Phoenix is $21,975. These are just a few examples of what the geniuses in our county are doing to us. You know, and like I said originally when I started, the state's attorney's office does have the ability to look at this. You know what? The solution is not raising taxes, because where are they going to go? They're leaving the state. Anybody that doesn't believe they're leaving the state ought to look at the numbers. Look at the U-Haul trucks that are coming up and pulling people out over and over and over again. Crime is not the only issue that I'm hearing. I'm hearing this whole corruption about this political system that is now tying everybody down. And again, we have to do something. And so, like I said, keep electing the same people over and over again, and you're going to get the same results
Mr.
over
Perry?
and over again.
What can the state's attorney office do directly to help solve the property tax issue?
Well, I think first of all, when I'm elected state's attorney, because I don't believe that they're going to do anything, convene a panel that's going to bring everybody together. And you know, panels, we all know. Don't get me wrong, but I think we need the experts on that. Then we can all get together and then go down. We have to change the way we do things here in Cook County. and really throughout the state of Illinois. And you know what? We need a revolt out there. People have to realize it's time for them to stand up. And I don't know how many people have 1 foot already out the door, I mean, out the state of Illinois, but I hear it, you know, and we have 18 attorneys right now that look at all the taxes. We also have a system where they are so overworked in that they bring some lawsuits against the tax cheats. But the problem is, the other side has so many, they get hit with so many attorneys on the same type of cases, and we don't have the resources. I'll try to redirect that.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Mr. Sumner.
No, I think that everybody give it up for Bob. First of all, I'm so thrilled to be here. But I definitely think if you guys can remember back in 2018, what do we call the scandal that Governor Pritzker was doing? Anybody remember? Yeah, pulling toilets out of his home. Do you know what reduction that led to? $331,000 of a reduction off of his mansion. $331,000. Somebody had to pay for it. So how our system works, and Sam can attest to this, and I'm sure Judy as well, when someone gets a reduction, someone else has to pay that bill. And guess who? We are paying that bill right now today. And so it just brought it up. So I think the state's attorney office, you know, it led to a federal investigation, but where did that lead up to? To the governor's seat, right? And so it didn't go anywhere, unfortunately. But I think the state's attorney office has a role to play in this, where people are you know, cheating the system, right? And it's hundreds of them. And you know, unfortunately, here in our office, and you know, it's really nothing we can do, right? The problem is if you get to the point where your taxes are 50, 60%, some people see 110% increases in their property taxes. Well, it's nothing we can do for you that year, unfortunately. You're gonna have to pay that bill, right? And so what we wanna emphasize is urgency. Let's be proactive instead of reactive. I love these events and I love coming to these, but if we were being proactive and we're fighting our property taxes, we're getting involved in our school boards, we're attending those meetings, we need to figure out where our dollars are going and how do we keep more of them in our pockets. Unfortunately, we haven't done that in the past. And so, you know, I'm proud to say, hopefully, you know, we're gonna have a new regime in the state's attorney office, and we're gonna start looking at these issues because businesses are doing it, you know, politicians are doing it, and I think it needs to come to an end, and I think it needs to end soon.
I have one more question for you, Mr. Sumner, then we'll go over to the tax doctor. But when I bring my property tax bill to you, you look at it, I give you my PIN number, and you tell me you can save me X amount of dollars. How does that work? Do I have to pay you up front? Do I get paid once I get the rebate? How does that work?
Yeah. So that's a great question. You pay us zero up front. So we do all the due diligence, we file all the paperwork, and you don't have to pay us one red cent. You only pay us if we win, right? If we win for fighting your property taxes, we will take only the first year's savings, and we would only take a percentage of that. Right now, our percentage is 50%. We're looking at actually lowering that percentage for a lot of the Collier counties, like in Thornton Township, Rich Township, because they just can't afford to pay it. Unfortunately, the fee of a percentage is so great because the taxes are so high, they can't afford to pay it. So we're looking at reducing that taxable fee that we charge up front. But I mean, we're charging the back end. But other than that, yeah, it's absolutely free to work with us.
Awesome. Thanks for clarifying that. Dr. Travis, the tax doctor, you've been doing this for a long, long time, sir. And I'm geared up and I'm ready for veto session coming up in November in a few short months here, where we're going to be in Springfield fighting for the people. So Dr. Travis, what types of legislation is being proposed? What's going on out there? What should we be telling people to get behind? First, I can hear you.
As Bob said, you ought to be mad as hell. How many saw the movie Network? The movie Network. They mad as hell. I am mad as hell. Let me put out a disclaimer. I don't pay property taxes. I do not pay property taxes. But I'm out here fighting for you. Because the system is totally corrupt. And as Bob pointed out, Mike Madigan spent 50 years in Springfield fighting property tax reform. Burt in the city of Chicago. When Burt was doing property tax appeals, he was costing the taxpayers of Chicago more money because he's making millions. And when them folks got them tax breaks, the poor folks in Chicago had to pay that bill. Now, let me bring this home. We have 102 counties. 102 counties. We have 859 school districts. 8,000 to 9,000 units of government. You can go to Susan Mendoza's website and see all of the units of government. That 9,000 units of government cost us $33.8 billion in property taxes. $33.8 billion in property taxes. The 859 school districts cost us $20.8 billion in property taxes. Our position, because as I said, sitting on the governor's task force along with Obi Warlock and some more folks. We created the Citizen Advisory Coalition to save Illinois. And then Obi and I, we went over to the Pilsen community and we created the We the People campaign to save Illinois. Let me give you some very sad numbers. And Ted and WirePoint, they do a great job in putting out facts. Give them a big hand. When we think about the solution, we're looking at 50/50 plus 1P equal 2,500. Break that down. 50/50 plus 1P equal 2,500. That's part of the solution to this problem. When you look at the fact, we have 102 counties. 97 of the 102 counties lost population. 97 of the 102 counties lost population. When they passed the Safety Act of Springfield, there was a problem because, and I said we got 8,529 local government units, 859 school districts. We got 1.9 million students, 102 counties. 62 have fewer than 35,000 residents. 50 counties have fewer than 25,000 residents. 31 have 15,000 residents. 15 fewer than 10,000 residents. 7 don't even have 5,000 residents. Our population is 12,800,000 people. When we compare ourselves to Florida, 65,750 square miles. And we only have 57,950 square miles. Florida's population, 23.5 million people. 23.5 hundred thousand. Now, they have 1,650 local units of government. Check this out. They got 67 counties. We got 102. They got 67.
So, Dr. Travis, are you saying that the number of counties means that our property taxes, our tax burden goes up with the higher number of counties?
Yeah, we need to reduce. Now, check this out. They have 67 counties, 267 municipalities, 70 school districts. We got 659 school districts. They got 70. They got 2,838,000 students, and we got 1.9 million students. Now you tell me what sense do that make? Now this is the killer, folks. We got 46 states that have less than 2,500 units of government. 46 states. Illinois is the laughing stock of the country because we as taxpayers, we as citizens, we have sat back since the 1970 Constitutional Convention. First of all, let me see, how many of you did you know we had a convention in 1970? And do you know what happened at that convention have done an injustice in this state? Do you know in 1970, in December, there was a special election. That's how we ended up with this crazy pension crisis because less than, I think it was either 37% or 47% of the people came out and voted. And so for 50-some years, we have been saddled with a pension crisis that you and I have to pay for.
Hey, Dr. Travis, thank you for those numbers. I know with the number of counties, that seems very, very weird to have so many counties, have more counties than a state like Florida. When it comes to the higher number of units of government, I know I personally heard some weird types of units of government that I know most people don't know exist, like the mosquito abatement district and things like that. Can you share some other units of government?
We have like, I think it's 27 airports, cemeteries, museums, 815 special districts, 5 districts. And when you talk to the legislators about all these units of government, there have not been any audit of this stuff in probably 50 years. And when it comes to the Safety Act and the fact that these numbers about how many folks live in these counties, there have not been a study of that since they said 1949, which is crazy. But there is some legislation that just got passed. This is
We're Dr. Travis, we're going to come right back to you. I want to give Ms. Ives a chance to chime in.
I just wanted to talk a little bit more about that because you're getting to a point where people are probably wondering, well, what's the solutions? Well, I want to tell you, one more property tax task force is not the solution. Maybe a commission run from the state's attorney's office would be to look at the corrupt practices. That's a little bit different. But we've had a property tax task force after property tax task force after property tax task force. In 2017, for example, I filed one that was really good. Literally, they passed a task force that dealt with trail rides. Okay? And they wouldn't pass my property tax task force, so instead the Democrats literally word for word stole my property tax task force and had the gall to ask me to be a co-sponsor on their bill, and then they passed that bill as their own when it was my bill, and I passed everything. So these guys are all fakers. It's completely fake. In 2019, they did another task force when Pritzker came in. They came up with 3 different solutions, basically. Local government consolidation, which is what the doc just talked about, the tax doctor did. They talked about state funding for education. Well, I'm sorry, but $22,000 per kid for education is enough. And in fact, it's way too much. We do not need more funding for education. We need to spend our dollars correctly. And then they also talked about expanding the sales tax base because sure they'd like to swap out property taxes for a sales tax base. Yeah. You know what? We're just taxed too much. We spend too much, we tax too much, we have too much government. That is the bottom line. And I would tell you what, you go to your state reps with this complaint, and you should confront your state legislators with this complaint. And you know what they're gonna say to you? Oh, I signed up for the property tax task force. I voted for that bill. I'm all about lowering property taxes. They'll say,
And they'll say, well, maybe it'll be one of the people, because there were 70 property tax adjustment bills filed just last year. 70. And they were all like Mickey Mouse BS solutions, all of them. Oh, well, you know, instead of the senior exemption being whatever, we're gonna raise it 1,000. Oh, instead of the homeowner's exemption gonna be 8,000, now it's 9,000 in Cook County. By the way, Cook County, it's 6,000 everywhere else. You make it 8,000, everybody else gets 6,000 for a homeowner's exemption. You guys get special deals all day long, every day. Every single day. Or it's gonna be an additional veteran exemption, which, by the way, should have been indexed to inflation. Or not indexed to inflation, income should have been a suggestion on that one. I'm the only one to vote no on that. And I'm happy about that. So I'm telling you, they're Mickey mousing around and they're going to give you lip service. Meanwhile, next door in Indiana, guess what their solution is? 1% hard cap on residential property taxes. 1%. 1%. So that tax bill that you just saw there, $12,800 and some dollars, $12,200 on a $270,000 house. That tax bill would be no more than $2,700. So she's saving about $10,000 a year. Count up those savings over 10 years. 100 grand. I mean, this is why people are leaving. And that, you know what they're doing? They're going 10 miles to the east, to Indiana. That's what they're doing. It's insane what's happening. Insane. And your legislators are doing nothing. That's the message I came to deliver.
Thank you, Ms. Ives. Tax Doctor, can you share a few more things? We got about 2 minutes and let's start a Q&A.
Jeannie, right? Here is the report, my committee on the Property Tax Task Force. Our report is 62 pages. The Democratic report was 30-some pages. Now, both reports say practically somewhat of the same: consolidation, liquidation, and transformation of the system. We met with the Speaker of the House, we met with the President of the Senate, we met with legislators, we met with senators, and Senator Robert Marwick of the North Side, his bill is SB 3455. What this bill is going to do, it's going to align the property tax system study, the department in consultation with the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity shall conduct a study to evaluate the property tax system in the state and shall analyze and information collected in connection with that study. So, January 1st of 2025, this report, the study is going to take place, and July 1st of 2026, they're supposed to have recommendations on the governor's desk and to the General Assembly. And as the state rep pointed out, what's going to happen, we don't get involved with this. And you should get in contact with your state senator about SB 3455. And you call your state senator and you ask your state senator, what can I do to participate with the Department of Revenue and the Department of Commerce? Because they said in the back that they're supposed to allow us to participate. Folks, the IRS keep a running ledger of how many people leave the state. We just lost 200,000 some people. And when these folks leave the state, they take their money with them. And when they take the money with them, all of us have to make up that difference. But if we got the schools off the property tax system, cut the units of government down to 2,500, that tax rate should be like 0.6, 0.5. It's like it is in the southern states. It makes no sense, folks, for us to be in this room after 1970 talking about this. But we failed as adults. We failed. But you know what, folks? We got an opportunity to reprieve ourselves. Because when a brother like this can put on a forum like this and have the beautiful people on the panel like this, I have hope. I have hope. And folks, we got to understand it's not a black issue, it's not a white issue, it's not a brown issue, it's all of us working together to save this state. My granddaughter, Bless, raise your hand, Bless. Raise your hand. My granddaughter is 8 years old. I don't know what kind of state I'm gonna leave her. I just turned 70 years old. 70. My buddy's old. He's in his 80s, damn near 100. And you know what he tells me? He said, Travis, I don't want you to get to my age and y'all talk the same BS. It's gotta stop up here. This room right here, it's gotta stop in this room. We got the solution, let it stop in this room.
Thank you, Dr. Courtney. Thank you all on our panel for sharing such wonderful information. Does anyone in the audience have any questions?
Sure. I'd just like to know, when we talk about solutions, how serious are we at going after certain entities? Because I notice when you guys talk, you kind of gingerly walk around the unions. We shouldn't. I'm local 134 in my BW. There's a difference in public sector unions, private sector unions. You guys have got to make that difference. Because when you don't, you force our hands to back up their play. When you say just blanket unions, you force our hands. Because our pension, IBW, 1.8 billion in the black. In the black. And we have the Cadillac package in healthcare benefits. And we don't have the master, we only cover Cook County. Now, you guys talk about the retirees leaving. That's just the superintendent. Let's talk about the hundreds of employees under that superintendent that still work here but do live in Indiana. Because we cover Cook County, IBW. It's not even 1% of our people live outside of Cook County District. And we can live anywhere we want. So something's going on and something's wrong with that, because that has to be looked at when we talk about solutions. That's why I'm saying that. Because how do we get them, this asylum
Let me say this.
inmates when they sign?
Because do everybody remember when Amendment 1 was pushed down our throat every day on TV? And it was a private sector union. The guy came from Indiana, over to Chicago. Ted and I was on a panel discussion on the west side of Chicago talking about Amendment 1. And we told the public sector workers, Amendment 1 is not in your best interest. Because if something happened on your job, there ain't nothing you can do about it. You're on Amendment 1 now. Okay? So I hear what you're saying about the private sector, but it was the private sector that came over into Chicago pushing the Amendment 1 down there. So now, in order to fix anything, you got to have a constitutional amendment. Same thing with the pension price. And by the way, in 1989, when Governor Thompson was governor, he jumped up and down because he signed into law that 3% compound interest that these retirees had every year. 3% compound interest. And when you think about the pensions, you got all of these public officials that we're paying millions of dollars to. And half of them, they put in their fair share to the pension bucket. So,
Just real quick. So just get a little education on that situation. When we negotiate, we're negotiating against competition because you got ABC contractors and stuff like that. So it's the difference when public sector negotiate, who they competing with. See, if our contractors don't get paid, our workers don't get paid. But if the public sector workers make a mistake, we still got to pay our taxes. So that's why you have to separate that. And that's where it's at in the negotiations. That you can't allow them to come in and say we want to get treated like the private sector because they're not the private sector. That's a big difference.
Thanks for raising your question because it's the right question. And we talked about these property taxes. They are the cost of government. Different prices, public unions, and we're probably, I think we are the #1 most heavily publicly unionized state in the country. So whether we like unions or not, we are the most unionized state when it comes to the public sector. And they are, and I will give them credit, they're the most, I'd say the strongest, sometimes I might, in the CTU, might call them most radical, but they're the strongest unions, and they've extracted tons of benefits from the state legislature. They have way too much power over our legislators, or maybe I should say differently, our legislators give in to them all the time. So when I think about this, look, there's no way to bring down our taxes, not just property taxes, but the sales taxes and the income taxes, etc., unless you reform the public union costs. Okay? And so it's this, for me, it's this simple. And we can talk about all the kinds of solutions that we need in Illinois, right? We're going to reduce the number of governments, et cetera, et cetera. And it's all correct. Very difficult, hard to understand, very complex, too many numbers. So I'm trying to narrow down what I think we need to do in 3 things. And it revolves around throwing out politicians who oppose these 3 things. And I think Mr. Fioretti said it well. We keep putting the same people in charge of our policies. They keep giving us the same things, and we reward them for it. So we're not the smart ones right now. So here's the 3 questions I would ask my next politician to decide whether I would vote for him or not. Number 1, and I'm going to make this number up. Do you support a $5 billion tax cut across all of Illinois? Yes or no? Okay? Number 1. And that would be about a 15% reduction off of today's property taxes. Do you support school choice? We don't have any competition in our schools. We have horrible results, and they spend a ton of money. I can't think of another way to reform this faster to get into school choice. So that's number 2. Do you support school choice or not? And number 3, do you support 401ks for all new government workers? These pensions are crazy, unaffordable. Let's get the 401ks like what everybody else has in the private sector. And if you can answer those 3 questions for me, that you support those 3 things, then I'll vote for you. If not, I'm voting you out. Simple as that.
So pension reform's been back around a long time, and they've never ever adopted the solution that Ted and I worked on when I was an early legislator. And it wasn't hard back then. It gets harder and harder as it goes on. You get more people, the pension crisis balloons. But it's simply, when you think of the 5 state pension plans, there's 5 of them, right? They're about $140 billion in debt. Really, if you look at a realistic rate, they're over $200 billion in debt. Retiree health care, there's nothing been set aside for that. That's another, about 50, 60 billion. In debt too. Illinois is in debt. It's one of the deepest in debt states, bar none. Every single taxpayer owes about $56,000 if it comes to the debt crisis. If you're in Chicago, just add another 50 grand to your bill too, for the debt that you owe for pensions. The police and fire are not secure, their pensions are 20% funded, that's not secure at all. And, you know, they're gonna say the pension cost for Chicago, city of Chicago is like $2.8 billion, they don't have the money. They have $1 billion deficit they're looking at. Where are they gonna come? They're gonna come to Springfield, they're gonna come to ask for relief from the state taxpayers that are across the state. Now, we spend on pensions, just the pension cost on a $53 billion budget, which is the highest budget in the history of the state of Illinois for general revenues. It's 32% higher than just 5 years ago when Pritzker first took office. 32% increase in the budget in 5 years. We're spending $1 billion on illegal immigration costs, easy $1 billion, and the bulk of that is non-citizen health care, and they get Cadillac health care compared to people that are on typical Medicaid in this state. And we get zero reimbursement from the federal government for that service. So they're spending $700-800 billion on non-citizen health care alone, that. So we're spending well over $1 billion on illegal immigrants here. Now, the pension cost in that $53 billion budget, Ted, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like $10 to $11 billion. $10 to $11 billion. 10 to 11. And except for Illinois State Police and probably IDOC, so your Department of Corrections, they're not really public safety positions at all. And we've always advocated that public safety, yeah, you know what? Guess what the U.S. military did in 1986? They went to a hybrid program. You have a less generous benefit for our military than you give police and fire. Let's just be honest with it. Just be honest about it. We're willing to give them a hybrid program. They can have a part 401k and a part, defined benefit. Fine. But your teachers should have been 401k decades ago. There's nothing special about them. Sorry, it's true. Compared to everybody else that does work, healthcare workers, you name it. So, but that's where we are. That's the state of the state, and he's right. It's got to be pension reform, competition in the schools, and just an immediate cut. How about if you just cut the budget back to 5 years ago, and then you push that all to property tax relief? What if you spent $13 billion on property tax relief next year, and you just went back to what we were spending 5 years ago? I don't know. Why don't we try it? Sounds good to me. Sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Eyes.
My question's a little different. Sorry. When you're going to do an evaluation of somebody's taxes, trying to lower taxes, what are you using as the criteria? Is it mostly comps in the area, or is it other factors?
I think Sam can take it too, but for us, like Sam said originally, uniformity for residential property. So you have to be assessed similarly to your next comparable property in the same style, year built, make of the property, and then of course the mechanics of things that's going on with the property. Let's say your kitchen or your roof, or the age of this, normal wear and tear items. So those are what we're looking at. So yes, comparables, but mostly uniformity would be hard.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Assessor.
So we'll look at it from two or three different angles. Lack of uniformity, of course, that's the most common. But we do come across cases where your house on the block and there's no other real good ones kind of close by. So we'll move from lack of uniformity to market value. And at that point, the next step will be, we'll say, well, look, let's get a realtor to do something called a comparable market analysis. And that revolves around actual sales that have happened within the past 3-year period. We usually ask, if you get a realtor to do it for you, to do 8 to 10 sales in your area that have happened in the past 3 years or so of similar homes to yours. And most realtors give them to us exactly the way we want them in a nice report form that shows the median, the maximum, and the lower for sales, you know, and then they've got all the MS, what do you call those sheets?
MLS.
MLS
Yeah,
sheets
multiple
attached to it,
sheets.
got all that
Yeah.
attached to it, you know. And that makes it easier for not only us, but where the package actually ends up with either the assessor or the board of review. Now they've got information that they can look at, and they can look at it quickly. That's another point I would like to make when you consider sending your appeals in. I worked at the board of review for 11 years, and doing appeals with the quickness is important because they do over like 300,000 of them or so. And so you want to submit information that's easy for them to draw a conclusion from quickly. And so by putting together a good professional CNA, that helps that process go quickly. And you'd rather than make a decision based on good, concise information that they can see or look at and say, this is going to be a no change because it's not really telling anything. So that's the other thing. Then the last piece, not the last piece, but the next piece is if a CMA is not available, you could consider getting an appraisal done. Appraisals do cost money. However, as far as proof of justification, it's just about the strongest piece you can submit. If you want to go with an appraisal, the appraisal needs to be no more than 3 years old. And for a specific, that's good. Make sure you tell the appraiser that, look, I want you to do this appraisal because I want to appeal my property tax assessment. Not that I'm trying to refinance my home. Let them know that for sure. But that's a strong piece of information. I'll let you know something else. When I was at the board of review, I ended up learning more about appraisals than kind of ever really wanted to know. Okay? There's a sheet in there, and you can take a look at this, it's going to be in every appraisal. It's the grid page that lays out all of the comps that he's using and all the characteristics. And at the bottom of that, they have kind of a percentage of different adjustments that were made to bring the comps in line more with the subject property, which is your property, all right? You don't want to see really big adjustments, like 20% adjustments on things, because at that point, it's kind of like making, what is that statement about? You can't dress up a pig or you put lipstick on a hog or whatever. That's what you're getting when you get those really big adjustments. So you want to take a look at that, and somewhere between 15% or less, plus or minus adjustments, most people are not going to have a problem with it. But I've seen some where the adjustments were kind of like really crazy, 20%, 25%, that's like, it's not going to fly. So that's just one of those things to take a look at, or just ask the appraiser, where do the adjustments fit in the mix? How far plus or minus you have to go in? But those are kind of the three things: lack of uniformity, comparable market analysis, and appraisal. Those are the three main things. And then outside of that is if you got one of those situations where, well, I haven't done other than my house in 20 years, and all that kind of stuff. If you think if your house has some issues, feel free to take pictures and submit them as further justification. But it's a funny thing. I used to laugh at the board of review when people would come in and brag about the fact that they've done nothing to their houses in 20 years. Personally, I would be embarrassed to say that. Okay, but when it comes to giving yourself a chance to get a reduction, I guess no holds the bar, so to speak. But that's kind of an overview of what we look at.
And I'll say one other thing too. The other thing you want to make sure is, some people may not tell the story of, you have a train in the back of your home that shakes your windows, or you have anything that's uncommon to your particular situation that affects your neighbors. You want to pinpoint that. But certainly going the appraisal route, appraisal today costs you about $550, right? In our office, we have an algorithm that checks far greater than the appraisal. I'm a broker, real estate broker. I do hundreds of comparative analysis, probably over since I've been in the business. And what I'll tell you is our system, if it's free to check it, literally go in there and see if you get a reduction. If it's something, you can tell you if there is a reduction due for your particular property, your PIN, your address. And the other thing you need to watch is these unconsolidated PINs, right? So I know a lot of, and probably show of hands, how many people have 2 PINs? Like their home's divided in 2 PINs. I know, we got one and a few. Okay, so you have to make sure you watch those PINs, because if you have a mortgage on your property and they sell that mortgage, so they're debt servicing mortgage to another servicer, oftentimes that escrow may or may not follow, right? And so you have to double check to make sure your escrow is in line when they sell that service, when they sell that debt service. But what I would suggest to do, consolidate those PINs, because most of the time there is no reason why a property, a pallet should have, a parcel should have 3 and 4 PINs, right? So look to consolidate. We can do that in our office for free. Look to consolidate those PINs, because if you forget to pay one of those, you can also maybe forsake your property, your main subject property, because you forgot to pay one of your PINs. Okay? So definitely consolidate.
To clarify, your office consolidates PIN numbers for free?
We do, yeah.
So anybody here that has multiple PINs, you will consolidate them for free?
We'll consolidate them for free. We'll file all of your exemptions for free. That's just a part of working with us. And again, it's free to work with us. And most of the problem we see with homeowners is trying to keep the deadlines. They're so complicated hard that most of the individuals don't do it. You went as far as to assessor. You say, well, I went to the assessor. I did what I was supposed to do. No, you missed the board of review. You missed the PTAB. Maybe you missed a good comparable market analysis, like Sam said. And so it's just not going and saying, well, let me fill out the application to appeal my taxes. It's much more than that. And certainly you better have a really nice package for the assessor and the board of review, and particularly the PTAB, if you have to go that far to view it. So yeah.
Mr. Sean James?
I first, let me just thank Dr. Cornell and Erica and the chamber for stepping up and doing something. And I want to thank the amazing panelists of experts. I've learned so much. And one of the panelists said we should all be mad and upset. Well, here I am. I'm mad and I'm upset. I've been in my home over 10 years. I live in Matteson, Illinois. And Sam Brown is my assessor, and he hears me all the time. I go in his office, and I'm pissed, and I'm upset. What can we do? What we need to do? And I want to thank the tax doctor. Like he said, he don't pay a dime, but he's out here moving and shaking and educating people. And I don't know, and I came a little early today thinking it's going to be packed. I can't even get a seat. I thought it would be wall-to-wall folks, and it should be. And I don't know, I'm just thinking, why do we have to go through the appeal? We got to go fill this out. We got to do this. We have seniors. I work with seniors that are losing their homes. If we're not upset, I don't know. I tell people I love my house. I love my home. My parents raised me in the city of Chicago, and I look forward to, when I got older, saving my money to buy me a house. But at the end of the day, I need to make a decision. Do I stay? Or do I leave? And be able to afford a decent living at the end of the day as we continue to age. So I'm not sure if, assessing, I done been there, done that. I done assessed, I done appealed, I done did all of that. And I get a letter in the mail saying, sorry, not for you, have nothing for you. So now I gotta try to figure out how to pay this high property tax. And, I'm thinking, somebody said flat tax. Why can't we just be fair? And no disrespect to Mr. Brown and the assessors, but do I need an assessor to assess my house? I'm just keeping it real, just how I feel. Can we just listen, if you're in the state of Illinois, 2% across the board. give you north, west, south suburbs, or whatever. Why do I gotta go through 10 steps, file this, go to here, meet with you? People are trying to live a decent quality life, and we making this just too complicated. So my question is, because I'm a mover and a shaker, what's the next step? We haven't had meetings. The tax doctor have Zoom calls. We educate. We have to continue to educate people. But I think we bougie out here. We go in our garage, let that garage door down, and then we don't talk to neighbors. We just bougie like that. I don't know. But my question is for the panelists, all of you experts, because we ready. We can get the folks. What do we need to do? Next steps to make something happen, to make some noise, to let folks know, yes, we've been talking, but next steps to say, listen, Governor, we coming down and we got 10 buses and we ready. Let's go to Springfield or whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying, what do we need to do? When we leave here today, I don't want to feel like, oh, that was another meeting, that was another presentation. What's next, panelists? Thank you.
That's a great question, Ms. James. There's a lot of different proposals out there, but we definitely need to come up with something, because you're absolutely right. The tax apocalypse just hit the south suburbs, and there is no issue getting people to go to Springfield. We can show up by the busloads, but what are we going to show up and what are we going to say?
I think let's start with Brother Brown. He has a petition drive on the internet.
Excuse me,
Let's start
enough of
there.
the petition. How about some action that we can do? Forget a petition.
Well, you
It's
got-
gonna take 5 years
I
to
hear
get
what you're
something
saying.
done.
I hear what you're saying.
I'm tired of a petition.
Oh,
I want to see some people voted out or something done.
I'm with you 100%. But we gotta keep it real too.
Well, a petition is not doing anything. A petition is not doing a thing.
That's just
Let's
one
get some
avenue.
people
That's
out.
only one avenue.
Some action.
We need, as Brother said, let's get some buses and let's go to the governor's mansion. Let's go to his house. See, let me say this. When it came to these reports, the governor did not have a meeting with the task force. He didn't have a press conference. But when he had his task force on the pension crisis, he had a press conference. He talked about the report that they put in, and it was a good report. But we say to the governor, you should have gave property tax the same support. And so the governor knows about these issues. In his 2027 unit, he told us we got 7,000 units of government. Property taxes too high. Well, you know that, Governor. What you gonna do about it? Well, they gave us capacity. Well, let's do this, folks. If you're willing, I think I'm willing. I think they're willing. Let's get on some buses. Let's go to the governor. Let's go to his mansion and raise holy hell with the governor. And then it goes over to your state rep and your state senator. And if they don't want to listen, let's vote their butts out of office.
I want to go to Ms. Hines and then to Mr. Fiorelli. But piggybacking off your question, Ms. James, and the gentleman back there, I like to say this: we gotta have something to go down there and say, right? And we gotta have a piece of legislation that's going to put some teeth into something, and everybody needs to be on board with that. I know State Rep Anthony DeLuca, he does a great job in Springfield. He suggested taking $100 million or something like that was going to migrants and giving it for relief, but that's just relief. That's what Mr. Sumter does and other people, but we need to change the system. So I would like to go to you, Ms. Hines.
Okay, real quick, because I've been down there, I've seen it all. I've been on the pension committee, all this stuff. I've been on labor and commerce, so I understand the union stuff as well. It is very difficult, but it's not impossible if you guys actually do what needs to be done. So first of all, right now as we speak, you're only about 3 months away from your school district having to put in their new levy, right? And those guys, they're gonna ask for their 5%, because they always do with the 5%. They already got, I showed you the numbers. They got a lot of money coming in and they're not doing their job. The first thing you need to do is you need to show up at your school board meetings and say, no. The answer is no. I don't wanna hear this bogus crap about if I don't capture the growth, if I don't tax to the max, then I leave behind the ability to tax to the max next year. That's what the game that they're playing. Because they can only go up 5% of the cost of inflation, whichever is less. That's all they can do every single year. So they think if they don't take their 5% that year, then they won't have a bigger base to take their 5% next year, and they might need it. So the first thing you do is you go to your school board meeting and you say, no more levy increase. None. Zero. They've squandered your money. Let's be clear about that. They have squandered your money. They have hijacked your house. They have it. Your house is under threat because of their levies. Let's be clear about that. So very first thing is you go to your school boards, you start showing up, you go to their finance committee meetings, you find out, hey, you know what they're doing in my district? They're trying to run a $151 million referendum after just taxing us to the max, all the time. We're like, hell no on that. But we still have a fight on our hands because they're organized. And they think that we're all asleep and that we're not going to do anything. So the first thing is for us to go to meetings and do that type of thing. Number two, Anthony DeLuca, okay, great. He finally woke up after the budget bill was passed. After the budget bill was passed, Anthony, Mayor Anthony, who I like. I personally like him. He's a great guy. But come on, you don't come up with some bogus thing after your party passed the budget bill and then now say, well, okay, that $1 billion going to migrants are going to all be shifted to property tax relief. And it shouldn't be $1 billion. Like I said, $13 billion increase in spending in the last 5 years. You seriously can't find, okay, I'll meet you halfway. You can't find $6.5 billion to instead move to property tax relief immediately. And I'm not talking about going through some bureaucracy. I'm talking about cutting every person a check. A flat out check. And then you put in a law that says there will be no property tax increases on any one individual property. We're gonna halt it for the next 5 years. The only thing you can bring in is new growth. I dare you, Governor Pritzker. You keep bragging about that growing economy. I dare you. You prove it.
So, Jamie.
You prove it. And you get people to file those bills, and that's what you do. That is not hard. It's not hard to ask that they do those three things. Those are not hard ideas at all.
Gina, you're saying cut a check, freeze the taxes.
Freeze everybody's taxes, cut a check, and tell your school board no levy increase. No
All right.
levy increase.
Also,
City,
what about
That's not hard.
what about the windfall money these school districts are getting from SB 508?
Yeah, well, I know, they got that passed too, because of, that's because, yeah, I know, it's all, whatever. It's just freeze it. Freeze it.
So I'd like to take a minute to defend my petition. Now, see, here's the thing. I feel you. I've gotten a few different comments like that in this process. But you see, I live in Madison, and I know what we're working with. I really know what we're working with. We're working with, as Sean said, people who drive up into their garages, pull the door down, and that's it. This petition thing you have to meet people where they're at. And doing this petition makes it easy for people to register their dissatisfaction with the situation. Now, I've gotten, between circulating this petition in paper, door to door, and online, I've gotten a little over 2,000 signatures of my $10,000 goal. Now, I don't hardly look at this petition drive as the be-all, end-all, but I do believe that it's step one, and step two is going to have to be more aggressive, step three, more aggressive, until we get to where we want to be. But even if you disagree with the strategy of that, please go online and sign it anyway. It's got solutions in it that you may or may not agree with, but there are possible solutions. I didn't invent them. They've been proposed over the years. They make sense to me. And it's a way for us to, as Michelle Obama said, do something now without you stretching yourself out or going out of your comfort zone, which eventually we will probably have to do. But right now, you can do something right now to register your discontent with the situation. And it's easy to do. You know, and so, like I said, I just ask that, even if you don't agree with it, go and sign the damn thing anyway, so you'll be one more person that's registering their discontent with the situation.
Thank you, Mr. Assessor. Jeannie, I love what you came up with. I think we got a new phrase, cut a check and freeze the taxes. Jeannie, can you help us come up with legislation that can actually put that to HB something or another so that we can push that at veto session?
I'll ask some state reps to do it.
Awesome.
They have bill writers.
Awesome, thank you. Cut the check and freeze the taxes. I want to go to Ms. Gary Dickey.
You hear me? Yeah. Quickly, I'd like to thank the panel. You guys did an excellent job. We got a lot of information. One of the things I see in the future, I hope for, is that Sam doesn't have to do this, and that he loses his job.
Exactly.
Because I don't know if you guys know it, but Illinois is an aberration. I grew up born in Miami. I grew up in Florida. I lived in Maryland for a number of years, and I lived in upstate New York. When I came to New York, when I came here, I looked at the tax bill. I said, what is all this? I couldn't figure this out. I never seen anything like this. It looked crazy, and it is crazy. It's insane almost. And the thing is, I think, I like your idea. You put a stop, you put the hammer down, you say this is it, no more, we're done. And I think I like that effort, I like that. And not for me, like, I bought 4 houses over my lifetime. This is the last house I'm in right now, living home. We paid the house off. And when my wife looked at the tax bill, we'll still be paying over $1,000 a month. So I'm saying, what is this? Will we ever own our homes? Will you ever own your home? Because as soon as you start paying, it's gone. And they keep talking about generational wealth. What's generational wealth? They tell us about buy houses, right? Buy houses for generational wealth. Pass them on to your children, right? Well, they'll never own the homes. The tax man owns your home, not the tax doc. But the thing is, you really got to look at this in a very objective way, and I just don't understand how Illinois got here. The tax doc, they keep trying to inform me, and what I read and what I look at, it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all. It seems almost insane. You know, it's an aberration. Illinois is a strange state when it comes to that. It's probably the most corrupt, legally corrupt state in the country. It probably, considering other countries, it's more corrupt than other countries. So I understand your anger. I feel your anger, and I understand what you're saying. This is really something we have to work at, and everybody's getting involved. You tell your family, you tell your neighbors, you talk to everybody about this issue, and make sure they understand how bad it is. Because you're sitting in your house paying money that other people don't pay. When we had taxes in our house, okay, my ex had a house in Maryland, right? We bought it for $75,000 in 1982. That house worth $485,000. I went there and I asked her how much she paid for taxes. She's paying $2,000 for taxes. And I told her I was paying, almost $11,000. You know what she said? She said, that was insane. I said, you're right, it is insane. So, Illinois is crazy. My name is Gary Dean. I'm the president of the local branch of the NAACP. And I used to work, I'm a retired federal employee. I worked in the scientist for 24 years, and then I did IT for 16 years. And so when I retired, I lost 30% of my salary. And I was okay with that. So I don't know what's going on. It's almost laughable. And your descriptions of the way this state's operated is just strange, bizarre, and so we have to do something about this. My son lives here, and he works, and this goes down the street, he can't afford to buy a house, and his girlfriend. They make good money, but they don't want to buy a house. So they live with us. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Now, really, I thank you for this great panel. I enjoyed the entire experience that you guys shared.
Thank you, Mr. Digger. Mr. Stokes?
Yes, somebody was asking what can be done now. I know one of the panelists mentioned Toiletgate, right? Yeah. And the governor essentially should have been in jail rather than in the governor's mansion because that was truly tax fraud. There's been the discussion of the systemic situation of the kickbacks of the lawyers and the other people that are now in federal court being prosecuted by the federal government, right? Why do we have to wait for the federal government to prosecute these folks, right? There's something you can do in the next 60 days, and he's sitting right in front of you. Yeah. You can elect Bob Fioretti as the next state's attorney of Cook County, and you'll see to it that we can start putting in place some of the people that are taking advantage of some of these things and making sure that the people that are in corruption, that are taking your money and spending it in a way or taking illegal kickbacks. We don't have to wait for the federal government to prosecute these people. We don't need to wait for the federal government to put them in jail. We don't need to wait for the federal government. Bob is sitting right here. Bob is sitting right here. You guys go to Bob's website, see there at bobfreered.com or whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but help Bob tell your neighbors, because the woman that he's running against is part and parcel of the cabal that will in fact sit together and go. They go in the back and they say, well, we got a bipartisan solution, right? What they do in the back with a bipartisan solution, they go in the back and figure out how they're going to divvy up the money, right? That's exactly what happens. I've been lucky enough, I've known Bob for a period of time, and I know that he will in fact enforce the law and see to it that these corrupt politicians that are spending money improperly and taxing us wrong go to jail. And what will happen with that? You send a few of them to jail, the rest of them come in line. The rest of them won't do that. You have an answer, right? You have an answer sitting here. In the next 60 days, you tell everybody, get out, vote for Bob, go help him out, and have him become the next state's attorney of Cook County. And that will be a huge step in the right direction. And that's something that can be done right now, right at this moment. Thank you very much, Bob. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Again, I have. It's time for. I appreciate all. I want some action. It's time for voting the same doggone people in, taxing the same thing year after year after year. It's enough of. I'm gonna do a petition. I'm gonna do this. I like to vote for some people that's actually doing something other than me paying their salary and their pension.
Have that same energy with your neighbor. Yeah. Don't we always take it out on the people that's in front of us? It's like, no. There was a lot of energy. Just hold on. I'm saying, hold on. You asked for a solution. You said forget the petition. If your neighbor, when you talk to your neighbor,
I talk to a lot of people.
What we're saying, hold on. We allowed you to speak, right? Let me speak. When you talk to your neighbor, tell them to get in line and run for something.
Tell them to run for that school board. You run for that school board. Don't demand something, do it. That's what you do. That energy with your neighbor, organize your block. You can find 5 people, 3 people, 5 people on the block. So we're gonna run for the board and we're gonna cut these taxes. Stop demanding people to help you and help yourself first. When you say petitions and answers, the petition you should have is the petition to get on the ballot for yourself.
and run. That's the petition we really want to be concerned about.
There you go, sir.
It's working.
Yep.
The American Revolution started as a tax reform. It could be done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I do want to reiterate the Chicagoland Black Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Center. We will be pushing legislation in Springfield, and I like what we came up here today. I told you we we're going to solve this problem today, and I thank Jeannie Eyes for giving us some praise. Cut a check, right? Cut a check.
Cut a check?
And freeze the taxes. So we're going to do that. We're going to come up with a bill, and we are going to get a check cut to everyone, and we are going to freeze the property taxes, and we want to keep this real simple, right? We want to get that bill drafted. We want to be down there in about a busloads in Springfield this November, and we want a check, and we want the property taxes frozen. We don't have to come up with all type of weird solutions. We don't have to be talking about no migrants. We don't have to be talking about percentages or nothing. Let's get something that we can get done now. Let's cut a check. Let's freeze the taxes.
Freeze the taxes.
I just want to say, I got to run out the door and be for the events today. I want to thank everybody for showing up. And this is a great panel. But the solutions lie in your hands. Yes, we got to vote them all out because that's what it is, especially in Cook County. But I have to say, and Jeannie said something about $5 billion. You know, the city of Chicago, when I left as alderman, and of course they did not want me as being alderman, and I know the powers that be do not want me as being state's attorney. But she said, you know, about $5 billion. When I left 8 years ago, the budget was just slightly over $8 billion. Today, 8 years later, it's $16 billion. What has changed, and what services to the people of the city of Chicago do we see that's different? Nothing. We need a wholesale change, everybody. Thank you all.
Guys, it's 2:00. The event has been